Welcome to Milan. Hi, I'm Megan, a licensed tour guide and travel content creator, and I am currently exploring Milan. This is a city that I have heard so much about, and I'm really excited to explore. Things that I love are fashion, food, and history, so we're gonna see what we see, and we'll also share some things that I wish I knew before visiting Milan so you could have your very best Milan experience. But before we get started, make sure that you click subscribe so you never miss a travel minute.
Yeah, love and talk. Ooh, love and talk. Love and talks, bringing healing to those who need it most.
As is the case with most European cities, at the heart of Milan is a house of worship. In this case, it's called the Duomo. The Duomo is gorgeous. Any photo, any video that you have seen does not do seeing it in real life justice. It is huge. It has the current capacity of 40,000 people, and it took 6 centuries to build. You can go inside and explore. It's really magnificent. So it's definitely worth seeing. However, here in front of the Duomo is also where we have experienced the most crowds and the most tourists. I would recommend that you hit all of the touristy sites, especially if you take a tour. I love taking tours, but I like to explore some of the less crowded areas in these videos. So we're going to explore those. But first, just off to the side of the Duomo, you'll see another attraction that you hear a lot about in Milan. Let's go see what it is. This is Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II. My apologies if I mispronounced it. My Italian is terrible. Our tour guide told us that this is the oldest covered shopping gallery in the world. But one thing that I have learned about history is that it's very complicated. So I'm sure that somebody's going to come and tell me about a covered shopping gallery that's even older. Now, here is where you'll come to shop for very high-end products. There's also a bookstore. We bought a book, and they certainly take beauty very seriously here. For example, all of the brand names that you see on the wall, they all have to adhere to a very strict color regulation, which is that they have a black background and gold lettering. But the real reason to come here, follow me, I'll show you. In the Galleria, on the ground, there are different mosaics, including the mosaic of a bull. You'll notice this huge crowd behind me. It's so big that we can't even see the bull yet, so we're gonna come back later and hopefully we can see it. But there's a tradition that if you stand on, it's an anatomically correct bull. So if you stand on a certain part of the bull and you turn with your heel 3 times, that you will have good luck. It is a tradition here in Milan. People come from all over the world, as you can see. So we were told by our tour guide that if you come very early or very late. So we'll come back, but I wanted to show you the full crowd experience. So for good luck, you put your heel on the ball of the bull and you spin around 3 times. It's hard. Woo. And now we'll have good luck. For anyone who was counting, I know someone's gonna be like, you spun around 4 times. That first spin, I messed up. I started over again. So 3 proper spins. Now we're gonna go explore some other shopping areas in Milan. If the Galleria is too crowded for you, check out Via Montenapoleone, which to me is reminiscent of something like 5th Avenue in New York City or Worth Avenue in Palm Beach. It is just this street, it is gorgeous, and it is lined with high-end shops on either side of us. So much bling. Pro tip for my shopper friends. Milan does follow the great tradition of many stores being closed on Sundays, and some are also closed on Mondays. Some are closed Sunday and Monday. So your most reliable shopping days are going to be Tuesday through Saturday. So keep that in mind if you are planning a giant shopping spree. and check the hours of stores that you really want to go to. There's all kinds of shopping in Milan. We're told that if you're looking for interesting boutiques, the Brera district is the best. We still have to explore more of that. We have so far just explored it on a Sunday, which is a bad day for exploring little boutique shops. But also all around the Duomo, there are shops ranging from Urban Outfitters to the Lego store to Louis Vuitton. So if you love shopping, this is a shopper's paradise. Oh, and there's a mall called Rinascente. Again, my Italian's terrible, but let's go check it out. La Rinascente is a luxurious department store located next to the Duomo and has been the queen of Milan shopping for over 70 years. Today, it boasts 10 floors of shopping with everything from baby clothes to makeup to Oscar de la Renta gowns. It's very popular, so be prepared for crowds. If you're looking for bargains and sales in Italy, know that those tend to come 2 times a year, and July is one of those times. So you'll see signs in a lot of the windows that say saldi, which means sale. Fortunately, we are exploring in July, so there are some good sales. I've been really surprised by the crowds that I've seen in Milan, especially around the top tourist sites. And something that I learned very quickly is that you really do need to plan ahead for many of the top attractions. For example, the Last Supper, those tickets to see the Last Supper, they sell out at least a month in advance. So you're really gonna wanna book those ahead of time. There are tours that you can book more last minute that will see things like the Last Supper. You will pay more for those. I'm always a fan of tours though. But those top attractions, if there's anything on your must-see list, book those early. The Milan Tourism Board gifted us with a YESMilano Pass to get into several attractions. We used this to see Sforza Castle, visit the roof of the Duomo, and our personal favorite was the self-guided tour of the La Scala Opera House Museum. Behind me is Sforza Castle. Sforza Castle began its life as medieval fortifications and after World War II was transformed into a museum where you could see the works of masters such as Michelangelo. I would say that Sforza Castle, the Duomo, the Last Supper painting, the Galleria, art museums such as Pinacoteca di Brera, these are the major sites that tourists come specifically to Milan to see. And something that really surprised me in the best of ways is how close all of these major attractions are to one another. They're really easy to walk. So for example, the castle to the Duomo is less than a 20-minute walk. So if you are someone who loves to walk around and see a city that way, Milan is the perfect place for you. Whenever I travel to Europe, I always basically live, eat, and breathe in my sneakers. I love sneakers because they are really comfortable for walking around. A lot of Europe is very walkable. As you can see, a lot of the streets are sometimes made out of stone and they're not very smooth. So the sneakers help get me around. However, Milan is the very first place that I personally have traveled where the very first night, we're sitting in this cafe watching people living their lives, locals in Milan, and nobody was wearing sneakers. People were riding bikes, not wearing sneakers. People were running down the street, not wearing sneakers. And I turned to my mom and I was like, I only brought sneakers and I wanted to hide my sneakers. I'm very glad that I brought sneakers. No one's been mean to me about it. But I would say if I was to do it again, I would maybe bring another pair of shoes as well, just when I was trying to feel more local. Right now, I am on the roof of the Duomo and there are spectacular views from here. It's really cool to see all of the statues up close. But I also thought that this would be a great time to talk about mobility issues and how easy it would be to wander around Milan if you had mobility issues. While I haven't spoken to anyone specifically, just the observations that my mom and I have made is that it's not the friendliest area for mobility issues. I do believe there is an elevator option to get up here, but they didn't tell us where it was. It wasn't easy to find, and there were a lot of very narrow stairs. We've done a lot of walking here and a lot of walking on uneven ground and a lot of going up and down stairs. So if you have any mobility issues and you're considering visiting Milan, just do your research to find like which attractions are ADA compliant. Make sure that you bring any tools that you need for mobility, including like any kind of cane or walker. And I am a fan of comfy shoes, even if the stylish people are like walking around in super stylish, not sneakers. I'm a fan of sneakers for touring. And just for the record, these sneakers are Hoka sneakers. I'm obsessed with them. I've traveled literally to Cape Town. I've traveled to France. I've traveled to Italy, all in my Hokas. And I'm a New York City tour guide. These get me through. If you are someone who prefers to take public transportation than walking around, great news. Milan has a fabulous metro. We've only ridden it a few times, but we found it to be seemingly safe, clean, affordable. It's 2.2 euro for a one-way trip. We actually were able to talk to gate agents to buy a ticket, but if you don't want to buy your ticket, that's okay. They have tap to pay as well. One thing to just kind of keep in mind is that you need to have your subway or your metro ticket both to get onto the train and to get off. So don't lose it between the time you get on the train and the time you get off, because to get out of that station, you're going to have to insert your ticket again. Behind me is a tram. There is a huge tram system in Milan. It's kind of like an above ground version of the subway. We've used it to get around. I actually prefer it to the subway because you get to actually see the neighborhoods as you travel around. And they're really easy to use. They even accept tap to pay. So if you have Smart Pay on your phone, you can just get on there, do your double click, and voila, you are journeying around Milan. And we've gotten pretty much every place we wanted to go that was a long distance that we didn't want to walk using those trams. Also, just wanted to point out, because this isn't something I see a lot in New York or most places in the United States, we have noticed so many people riding motorcycles, parking motorcycles. It's not uncommon for us to walk around Milan and just see these like giant parking spaces of motorcycles. I mean, literally, if we walk around, we have motorcycle, 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 person on a bike, and then more bicycles over there. I'm personally not a cyclist, but it seems to be a really great place if you like motorcycles and bicycles. The metro here in Milan does not run 24/7. I believe most days the latest that it runs is 12:30 a.m. and I believe it starts running around 5 or 6 in the morning. So if you're needing to travel between that, you might need to take a cab, an Uber. They do have Uber here. I'm riding in an Uber right now. Also, if you are someone like me who travels with a lot of suitcases, you might need to take a cab or an Uber to and from an airport. There are 3 major airports to fly into in Milan. You have Malpensa, Linate, and Bergamo. While there are public transportation options for all of these airports, we used a cab to get from Malpensa to our hotel initially and were surprised at how expensive it was. It cost approximately 140 euro in a metered cab. We also flew out of Linate Airport, which is closer to the city center. That ended up costing about 40 euro. In general, we were surprised at how expensive cabs were in Milan and thought it was important to mention in case you're trying to travel on a budget. Behind me right now is a man named Garibaldi. Garibaldi was one of the leading figures in the unification of Italy. So something that's really interesting and important to know when you visit Italy is what we know today as a single country of Italy used to be all of these individual states. They weren't one unified country. And even today, my understanding is if you visit Italy or you meet someone from Italy, they don't typically say, oh, I'm from Italy. They'll say, oh, I'm from Florence, or I'm from Rome, or I'm from Milan. And that's because even today, each of these different cities still has its very own feel, its very own energy, its very own foods, its very own elements that it takes great pride in. And this is truly something to celebrate. While cities such as Rome really celebrate Italy's past, I've heard people say that Milan really celebrates Italy's future. So a unique thing about Milan is it does seem to be the financial center of Italy. You have tons of banks that are located here, lots of businesses that have their headquarters here in Milan. So when you're walking around, while you will of course see people sightseeing, because there's a lot to see, from the Duomo to Sforza Castle to all of the museums, you're also going to see a lot of business people going to work, going about their day, grabbing their cappuccino before work, grabbing their lunch. So it does have a very different feel. Before we visited Milan, a lot of people told us that Milan has a much more serious feel to it than cities such as Rome. And being here, my personal observation is that it can feel a little bit more serious. And I think that what the people who were telling me this were talking about is the fact that you will see a lot of people who are very professional business people who are walking to work at these banks, who are walking to work at the headquarters of these major global industries. But don't worry, there's still a lot of culture and a lot of great food and of course fabulous entertainment in Milan. When you're dining in Milan, there are a few things that might surprise you. So one of the things is that the table water isn't free. They do charge you almost everywhere if you order table water. Secondly, there is something, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, it's called like a Coperto. It's a cover charge, so that it's a service charge. It covers things like the bread that comes out. It's not a scam, it's something that happens at every restaurant, pretty much. And then there's tipping. In Italy, tipping isn't really a thing the way that it is in the United States. In the United States, you have to leave 20%, 15, 10%, 20% for really good service. In Italy, if you want to, you can leave a few euro. No one's going to get mad, but tipping isn't the norm the way that it is in the United States. In Milan, my observation has been that in general, from about 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.-ish, that is aperitivo time. It's time when you can sit down, have some light bites, some cheese, some meats, and of course, a drink. Right now I'm having a Hugo Spritz, which I prefer to an Aperol Spritz personally. Then dinner really starts closer to 7:30, but as is the case with most of Italy, they tend to eat very late by American standards. So don't be surprised if the earliest dinner reservation you can get at a restaurant is closer to 7:30 or 8 p.m. If you're anything like me, one of the best parts of travel is getting to taste all of the local foods of the places that you visit. So in Milan, a lot of the local foods, they are very heavy food. So we're visiting in July and sometimes I'm like, I just don't feel like heavy food, but we did try them and they are delicious. So some of the local foods here, one of them is called a cotoletta, also known as an elephant ear because of its shape. Cotoletta alla Milanese is a signature dish of Milan made of a tender veal cutlet coated in breadcrumbs and fried in butter. It was delicious. There's also ossobuco, which is local to Milan, one of the dishes that they really pride themselves in. And then a risotto Milanese, which is a risotto that has some saffron mixed into it. Now, of course, you also have things like pizza and pastas. If you are looking for amazing pizza in Milan, I want to shout out Pizzeria Does Zero. This is a margarita pizza that I'm splitting with my mom. They pre-split it, that's why there's 2 slices on here. But this pizza is insanely good. We have actually eaten here 3 times during our visit to Milan, because while we're walking around, we're like, that pizza is so good. The crust is like insanely light and fluffy. The ingredients are very fresh. They have all different types of pizza. You can get fried pizza, you can get pizza with all sorts of crazy toppings. We really gravitate towards this margarita pizza, just plain, simple, delicious goodness. It's also incredibly affordable. You can get a glass of wine, I think it's about €5. So if you're looking for affordable, delicious pizza in Milan, Pizzeria does zero. Milan, I have noticed, is a little bit pricier than some other places that I've visited, including the food. Here is a little pro tip. If you get something like a gelato or a coffee or a bottled drink, if you get it for takeaway, or if you get it to your coffee, if you stand up at a counter to drink it, it'll actually cost you less than if you sit down. So if you sit down in one of the little tables over here, they'll sometimes add an additional price. So a little way to be on a budget is to eat on the go. In terms of where to stay in Milan, I don't pretend to be an expert on that, but I will tell you where we stayed. We stayed at UnaHotels Cusani Milano, which is located in the Brera district of Milan. And we really loved the Brera district of Milan. There's a lot of really cute shops, a lot of really cute, delicious restaurants, and it tends to be quieter than the area near the Duomo, but you're still really close to the Duomo. We can walk there in 10 minutes. We can walk to the Galleria in 10 minutes, to La Scala in 10 minutes. But when we come to rest our heads, we're in this really nice, quiet neighborhood. So Brera, 2 thumbs up. Something we have really loved about staying at UnaHotels Cusani Milano is the location. And it's been so nice to be able to just come back to the hotel room in the middle of the day, drop off our shopping, enjoy a little bit of air conditioning because it's the middle of July and super hot, and just rest our feet. And as you can see, just out of our window, just steps away, we have Sforza Castle. A lot of Americans might be surprised when they enter their hotel bathroom, because when you're in here, you will see your toilet, and then, at least in this bathroom, right across from the toilet, there is this sink toilet-y looking thing. This is a bidet, and it's not uncommon to find a bidet in your hotel in Europe. There are lots of YouTube videos online that you can find about how to use a bidet, but I just wanted to point it out so you weren't surprised when you use the bathroom in your hotel. Whenever you visit a new location, I always encourage you to take a tour. My personal recommendation is to try to take a tour on your very first day in a new location, because it helps you understand the area, how it's laid out, any local customs, the people, the history, the culture. I took a tour here in Milan. It was like a 2-hour highlights tour. It was really great. And your tour guide becomes your local friend. Feel free to ask your tour guide any questions that you have. Do they have a favorite place to eat? Do they have a favorite place to shop? Do they have any tips or tricks for getting to see any attractions that you might want to see? I also always love taking food tours and truly love a company called Eating Europe. I've taken a few of their tours. They're always educational, entertaining, and delicious. We took their tour of Milan's Navili district, which is the Canal district, and learned so much about the neighborhood, tasted delicious dishes, and even some off-menu items. So, strongly recommend. When we told people that we were visiting Milan, everyone said, you have to go to Lake Como, you have to go to Lake Como, you have to go to Lake Como. So we came to Lake Como. It is a really easy day trip. It takes less than an hour to get out here. We just Googled train tickets. We left from Milano Centrale and we came into Como San Giovanni. I don't know if that was the best train station, but actually Lake Como is pretty big. There's a lot of different places that you can enter. So if you have something specific in mind, you want to make sure you go to the right train station for that thing. For our thing, we made reservations at a restaurant called Ristorante Sottovoce, where we had the vegetarian tasting menu, and it was incredible. Like one of the best meals I've ever had. Every single dish was a surprise and a delight, so I strongly recommend that you make reservations at Ristorante Sottovoce. We went for lunch. It was absolutely lovely. You got a beautiful view of the lake. Now, after that, we didn't really know what to do. Perhaps if you went with a tour group, they would have lots of things planned. So we rode the funicular up the mountain where you get glorious views, and we're going to ride the funicular back down, and then we will head back into Milan. So yeah, nice little day trip, especially if you like lake towns. A word about the funicular. It takes you from Lake Como up to the top of a mountain. It's a town called Brunate. And while the funicular itself is really fast, I think it takes you from the bottom to the top in about 5 minutes. The wait to get onto the funicular can be rather long, but you do want to leave a bit of time because it does take a lot of time to get onto the funicular, and it can be very, very crowded. Once you're at the top, there are pretty views. There's a jeep that can take you up to a lighthouse that's named for the man who invented the very first electric battery. So there's lots of things to do, but just crowds. And we were told the crowds are year-round. I found that almost everybody in Milan speaks English, and speaks English very, very well. So if you speak English, you will be able to get around and communicate with almost everyone. I have been trying really hard, however, to at least start every interaction with a little bit of Italian that I know. And I have found that most people, they will greet me with like a ciao or buongiorno, and they are almost expecting me to speak Italian. But once it becomes clear, I don't. they speak English very quickly. But something I always like to say, if you are on the fence, if you want to try to communicate in the language, it's always good to try to learn using something like Duolingo or Rosetta Stone. And then Google Translate will be your best friend. Google Translate is an app. You can type something in English and it will translate it into Italian for you. Or if there's Italian that you don't know, you can type it in Italian and it will translate it into English. So that's a little pro traveler tip that's really helped me in the past. In Italy, many churches require that you have your shoulders covered and also below your knees covered. One of the churches that requires that you have your shoulders covered is the Duomo. Now, if you don't have anything, that's okay. They had these almost gauze wraps that they were giving to people who did not have their shoulders covered, but I like to just travel with a very light scarf. This one's amazing. I wish I remembered where I got it, but it sticks in your bag really, really easily, and if you're wearing spaghetti straps or something, you can just put it over your shoulders, and it also protects you from the sun. One thing to watch out for when you come to Milan that I was totally not prepared for is there are mosquitoes. So you might need to, take any kind of mosquito precautions that you enjoy to make sure that you are not a feast for the mosquitoes, the way that this risotto is a feast for me. Have to mention a few scam-like things that I see going on. Right now, literally, I'm seeing people just running around trying to sell things. It's not necessarily a scam. Right now, he's trying to sell selfie sticks. We've seen people handing out roses. If you really want a selfie stick or a rose, be my guest, but don't feel pressured to buy one if they come up to you. I've also seen people handing out these little woven bracelets and saying that they are free. They're not free. If you take one, they are going to then want a donation or some sort of money. So just say no if someone tries to hand you something. I have felt very safe in Milan despite all of the crowds, but I do just want to shout out these Travel-On pickpocket-proof bags because I use them wherever I travel. I really like them. They're a good size. The way that they are pickpocket-proof is they have this. This is very strong. People can't cut it. Oh look, here we have something happening right now, interrupting the filming. Look. So see. We're just going to say no. We're just going to say no, and we're going to keep talking about these. So we have the Travel-On pickpocket-proof bags. What makes them pickpocket-proof is this is very strong. You can't cut it. And then you have these zippers with these clasps, and the clasps make it harder. It's like an extra step to get into your bag. So I really love these. I will put a link to them. You can get them on Amazon in the description. I hope that this video has helped you get some tips and tricks for planning your very own trip to Milan. If you've visited Milan before, please feel free to share your tips, tricks, and recommendations in the comments so that everybody can benefit. And if you enjoyed this video, please click subscribe. It helps me bring you more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and happy travels.